I think I think we're live. It's always a mystery. Welcome to another season, and I just confirmed this is the beginning of season 7. That's crazy. Of Fearless Flight Live, our weekly Tuesday evening 6:30 Pacific live show. And Capt Ron, he's absent. He's actually working. He's flying with a VIP coaching coaching student. And so in the studio here, we have lovely flight attendant Diane. Hi, Diane.
Hi.
And Captain Eric Larson. Hey, Eric.
Happy New Year, you guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Same to you. And we have a big news story that you may or may not already be familiar with, and that is Japanese Airlines flight 516. And we're gonna get to that. However, I do wanna remind you, or Eric, is there anything that you wanna?
Yes, I hate to interrupt you. I'm getting a cue up that says live performance audio off. Is that bad?
Um, hmm.
I don't know if we're being recorded or they can hear us. I don't know.
So I'm not 100% certain. However, I'm pretty sure. Hi, Diane. Yep. Yeah, I think we're good. I can
Okay.
hear
Yeah.
Well,
the audio. So
I've seen that before.
all
Okay.
right.
You getting it on the phone, Diane?
Yeah, I'm seeing it.
Okay. Sorry, disregard.
And Jim Duke, Happy New Year's to you from the Zandam. Zandam. I imagine that's the cruise ship that he's on.
Yes. He's the cruising king.
That's the way to start 2024. I love it. And if you want to cruise more through your fear flying, why don't join our Birds of a Feather Facebook group? It's a great supportive and nurturing community. And let's go though to Eric, and why don't you kind of give us the lowdown on what's going on over there in Tokyo, and I'm gonna pull up a picture in a little bit as you talk.
So unless you guys are hiding all day long and not on your devices, last night, I guess it was a little after 5 p.m. local time at Haneda Airport, a major international airport just outside of Tokyo, there was an accident with a Airbus A350, a very large, long-range Airbus aircraft with a de Havilland Dash 8, and everything was fine until the Airbus landed and hit the de Havilland Dash 8 on the airplane with pretty disastrous consequences. And we have a couple slides we want to talk about, and as horrific as it was, there's some a very fortuitous ending to this story, and Flight Attendant Diane will talk a lot about it. But the reason we're bringing this slide up is if you can ignore the flames, which is a little tough to do, you'll see that the nose gear has collapsed and is on the ground. And as Diane will point out, there's also under the A where it says Japan Airlines, the emergency exit there is closed. And there's another picture of the aft part of the fuselage showing the tail on the ground. And this helped tremendously in terms of the evacuation. But that was expertly conducted by the 12 cabin crew there, and through no small part of a very cooperative group of passengers, 367 of them, who I'm sure were scared to death but did not panic and obeyed flight instruction attendant instructions to the letter, from what I could tell. And every single person got off of that airplane. And what I had heard later was that there were only 12 people hospitalized, and there were a number of small children in that group too. So that was expertly done by the flight attendants, and the passengers did a fabulous job. Apparently, what led to this was that now this is some of it's speculation, some of it's known. We always want all the answers right away, and as you guys know, sometimes it takes a couple years for one of these investigations to be concluded, and they find things out that nobody knew about or surmised differently at the time. But what is known is that the Japan Airlines plane had a clearance to land, so it was within their rights to be on the runway, and the Coast Guard de Havilland was on the runway, and we don't know what the status was there, because communications were kind of garbled. Conjecture, and by I mean this conjecture, is that part of the problem may have been the Airbus was on a tower control frequency, and the de Havilland airplane was being controlled by ground controllers. So those are separate radio frequencies, the ground controllers covering surface movement on the airport, except for the runways. And he may, and I said may, have accidentally blundered out of the runway when instructed to hold short, or may have missed a turn or something like that, caused him to be there. But that's the speculation right now, and all those recordings will have to be cleaned up to find that out.
And if you see there on all the news on your phone, on your devices, you can see numerous different film clips of the accident, and it looks in the one of the clips that I saw that the accident occurred just as the Airbus was coming down on the runway, just as on the very beginning of the runway, where it would have been started to almost roll on. Isn't that kind of what you saw, Eric?
Yeah, either on top of the de Havilland, or was, as Diane said, so quickly after touchdown at a great speed and mass that it cut the airplane up with the main landing gears. So pretty brutal.
Yeah. Right.
So there is one question from Maggie, and that is, I thought usually the airplanes are out of fuel. How come there was so much fire and smoke at the end of the flight? So that's a great question, actually, because generally speaking, as a layman, you'd think that they're pretty much out of gas and there's not much in there.
Well, yes, asterisk, but no, not really. We're always carrying reserve extra fuel, and depending on the weather, there may be fuel in there to go to an alternate. And there may be optionally increased fuel by the pilot or dispatch because they anticipate maybe holding. And the other thing that I was going to tell a short story later is, if we run out of questions, the airline optimizes fuel purchase prices everywhere, because that is, depending on the pilot labor contracts, one of the biggest variable expenses that they have. And if they were off somewhere where the fuel was much, much cheaper than they could buy it in Tokyo, then it would pay for them to fill up the airplane with a large amount of cheap gas and save having to load up so much more at the airport after they landed. So any of those things could have occurred.
It was a short flight too. It
Yeah.
was a short flight. It was over 700 miles.
Yeah.
It was just from a North Island to Tokyo. So
Right.
The aircraft had not just come over the Pacific. It was just kind of going the equivalent of maybe San Antonio to Phoenix or something.
And it was a 350, so it was a pretty big.
Yeah, it's an A350.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Airplane with a 9,700 nautical mile range.
Right.
not immediately doing the math in my head, but that's way over 10,000 miles. So very, very long ways if you don't have snacks in your bag and stuff to entertain yourself with. Very long, sad flight.
Not really a long flight. So
Yeah.
I don't have a question particularly here about this incident. However, I do want to ask Sergio's question. And Sergio's question is, saw that Boeing issued an alert after a bolt with a missing nut found in a 737 MAX. Should we be worried about flying on 737 MAX airplanes? Wow, when I saw that article, I thought, what else will they find in this airplane?
The answer is Ron and I are staying with a consistency on that one is no and no and no. You should not be worried. So I mean, who knows if this was one deal in a production thing of that single airplane, or literally it could have fallen out of a mechanic or assemblyman's pocket in the fuselage while they're inside checking rivets and doing other stuff. I mean, they'll run that down completely, but does that mean other airplanes have that or the same thing? Absolutely, possibly.
That
But
seems
they'll find out.
unlikely.
They'll find out. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The poor Max just attracts.
catch a break.
Yeah, exactly.
I was going to go back to the to add a little bit more to the incident for the JAL aircraft and then the and the crash there. And that was something that Eric had talked about as well. And that is the evacuation, the emergency evacuation of the passengers. And what I had read is there were 379. There were 379 passengers on there, and then the crew of 12. So and we were talking a little bit before we started recording that in the United States, the FAA requires one flight attendant per 50 seats on an aircraft. And it doesn't matter whether or not, if you have a 50-seat plane, whether you have 50 people on it or one person, you still have to have a flight attendant. And if you have an aircraft that has 100 seats, you're required in the US to have 2 flight attendants. And again, it doesn't matter if you have 100 people on the plane or 10 people on the plane, you still are mandated to have that number of flight attendants on board. And we were looking at the configuration of the Airbus A350, and depending on the aircraft and the airline, they will require, they order them with different class configurations. So sometimes it might all be cabin class. Sometimes it might be X number of rows for first class and X number of rows for maybe business, and so on and so forth. And so the number of seats on the aircraft is not necessarily the same from one A350 to another one in a different airline, or even within the same airline, depending on what the plane is used for. And so I don't know on this particular aircraft how many seats were there and how many JAL requires in their equivalent of the FAA, and Eric knows the nomenclature, and I do not remember that. But anyway, but they had, I'm sure, at least probably 8 to 10 flight attendants on that particular aircraft. And so again, in the US in training, the rule is, our goal is, and we're kind of graded on it, is we have to be able, and that's irrespective of the type of aircraft, we have to be able to evacuate the plane, get all of the passengers and the crew off in 90 seconds or less. And some of the questions we've gotten, that I've gotten as a flight attendant, is, well, that's one thing, you have a littler plane, Diane, but what about these gigantic planes? How can you get all of those people off in 90 seconds or less? And the answer is, there are more doors and there are more people. There are many more flight attendants. And so we're not trying to get the same 400 people out of 2 or 3 doors. There's probably a dozen doors at least. and then maybe a dozen flight attendants. So proportionately, it's still the same kind of evacuation protocol as far as who's getting off the plane in what areas of the plane. One thing that Eric brought up that I had mentioned in that one photograph is the door, the emergency exit door underneath the A in airlines, in Japan Airlines, was closed. And for some individuals, that might be a question. Why wasn't that door open? One of the, when you're an exit row passenger or your flight attendant, certainly, is you just don't go willy-nilly opening all the doors in an emergency evacuation. The requirement is to look outside the window. Those doors have windows, and certainly windows on the other side. And if there is an unsafe situation, if it's water or it's fire, in this instance fire, if you look outside and there's fire right outside the door, then you don't want to open that door. You want to find another exit. And that's one of the things that flight attendants will say is, doors blocked, come forward, go back, depending on where we need to get the people out to a safe exit, emergency exit, not just anyone. It has to be safe. And so it's very possible that in that particular instance is that they could see fire out that window. And so no, that was not an appropriate emergency evacuation location. Another thing that Eric—
You just beautifully answered Tracy's question, by the way.
Oh, I did? Oh,
yes,
good.
Perfect.
Oh, good.
Why was the emergency exit closed? So
why that was closed. And there's all kinds of things that can happen. It could be smoke, it could be broken, there could be something else going on outside that makes it unsafe. And so that's why we have lots of different emergency exits to ensure that there's going to be several that are appropriate and safe to get our passengers out. Eric brought up the fact that in the second picture, the tail of the plane, that basically the aircraft had broken in two, and the tail of the plane was very low. He had to, and we have to, practice when you go through training. You go out the emergency slides, and as we both experience, that when we go through training and testing, the slides end on a nice, like a gym mat, it's nice and cushy, and it's not concrete, and there's nobody screaming at you, and well, there may be, but it's kind of a nice beige, safe sort of thing to go down the slide. In an aircraft like that Airbus 350, that's really high up. It's very, very high up. And so the emergency slides all have to reach the ground, the tarmac. But the higher up, the steeper the angle. And so you can get out of the aircraft. But many times injuries that occur not on the plane. It's not smoke, it's not impact, it's not anything like that. It's coming down the slide and hitting the tarmac, the concrete, at a pretty fair rate of speed. And so one of the things that was an advantage in this particular situation, if you can look at it as an advantage, is that the angle of the slide, the distance was not as steep, it was not as long. And one thing, as I was saying before, is that one of the things we try to do is, if we are if we're able to give directions, if we're able to be closer there, we'd like to get the one or two people out the slide first who are bigger and stronger, and then we ask them to position themselves at the bottom of the slide so that when passengers come down, they can help get them and get them to stand up, keeping in mind that when you go down the slide, we want you to go down like this with your feet straight out. And then at the bottom, you have to stand up quickly because there are other people in back of you coming down the slide quickly as well. And so it helps if we have people at the bottom literally helping you to stand up so you can get as far away from the aircraft as you can in a relatively short. So there, it's not just a matter of open the door and get out. There are a lot of little things that we go through in training that we want to have our exit row people. That's why it's so important that you be willing to do those kinds of things and obey the crew commands to do those things to maximize the survivability and minimize any injuries, even in the evacuation phase, which goes to leave your handbags, leave your rollerboards, don't get your camera out to start filming. The whole object is to get out of the plane, and you can't.
Yeah. Once again, credit to those passengers. Nobody was trying to carry their duty free or any of that other kind of junk down the slide. If they were carrying anything, it was a baby. And as Diane was telling you, those slides are high. That used to be my least favorite part of Recurrent, notwithstanding my age, because I have mild fear of heights. And all I would do is look and see that the thing was attached and then hit it. And I probably in my entire career of 30 plus years only landed about stuck the landing about 50% of the time. The other 50% I hit the mat going fast enough, then I go flying off my feet. Well, these guys, there was video of them because of the nose being on the ground and the tail being on the ground. There's video of some of the passengers running vertically down the slide, which you could not do if the airplane was up on its gears. There was no way, but they were running down the slide and off the end. I mean, they were doing a great job, but that wouldn't have been physically possible if the airplane was still up and standing on the gears.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and I mean, I do want to just say that in that second plane, there were casualties, and that's always everyone's heart goes out, and especially since they were involved in providing aid, and so that's just yeah, it's very unfortunate, and yeah. Well, what we can say is that they are gonna come out with probably again a lot more suggestions, which are all gonna be shared internationally, I'm sure. And then it's gonna make flying that much more safer and that much more efficient and effective.
Right.
Yeah. So okay, I do wanna share a quick slide about our upcoming Cleared for Takeoff 201, our monthly live group coaching webinar. And Capt Ron recently completed an EMDR course, and he's going to share with us what he calls the Student's Guide to Trauma Therapy. So basically, it's everything that you need to know, practical stuff that can help you using EMDR to your advantage. And it's proven very, very effective means of helping people with flight anxiety. So that's coming up on January 18th at 6:30 Pacific time. And yeah, the link is here. I will also put it in the comments as well. All right, so where are we at here? Let me just see here. I can't really see any more questions. But one thing that did occur to me, just flying into an airport, and I know what you called it conjecture, but part of it, I'm sure to some degree, is also that greater complexity on airports with so many more aircrafts, and I flew personally into Haneda. It's an insanely busy airport. So that complexity, right? I mean, there's only so much that that we can improve, I can imagine, or do you see opportunities for improvement, for just being busier in general? Because these are the kind of near misses, the kind of whatever, right, that we've been talking about this past year. There were a couple near misses, and that one didn't miss. That one.
They'll certainly be, as part of a result of this accident, a extremely detailed review of the controller protocols at that airport on when airplanes get handed off to tower and routes that they take to the runway, and could they improve upon the routing to take out a one wrong turn, put you in the bad place kind of thing, or could they improve markings, stop bar lighting, that kind of stuff at critical intersections where we've done a lot of the U.S. airports with flashing bars in the ground and lights when an airplane is on the runway or with a takeoff clearance, almost like traffic signals at these vital intersections. And I'm sure they'll either think about installing that, review it, or see. They will definitely want to know how it was that two airplanes ended up in the same place at the same time. There was some sort of breakdown there, and they'll keep digging till they figure out why that happened, and then possibly issue a change to procedures, marking, equipment, that kind of thing, to prevent that from happening again.
And I guess that's up to Japan in this case, but Tracy is asking, do we ever get to know any material changes or results as the investigation closes? And my understanding is, especially if it happens in North America, there's always going to be a disclosure, a final report, whatever. So my guess is that they will have a similar process in Japan.
Yep, the Japanese Transport Authority will release something, as well as the equivalent of the worldwide FAA, the International Civil Aeronautics Association, ICAO, or the Japanese Transport Authority will release something and say, here's what's happened, here's what happened, here's why it happened, and here's what we're going to change. Here's our recommendation for changes as a result of this. So probably be an equivalent, extremely detailed report release that will be available for public consumption.
Yeah, and like in so many of these incidents, there are gonna be a lot of trickle down effects, right? From something so detailed. Yeah. It's gonna be an improvement. So, that said, and you'll let us know, Eric. So, Eric, you've just been given the task of coming on whenever the report is out.
Yes. If I have not deceased by that time or had space garbage land on me, I will pay rapt attention once a day and see if the report has been released and go, aha, because you guys will remember. We won't remember this. You guys will remember this and be asking. But if we see when that comes out, we'll pass along information as it becomes publicly available.
Awesome. Great. All right. But then I don't have anything to add here anymore, other than a reminder that also on January, when is that weekend? What is the next Saturday? Is that January 8th? That was a little fast, I know.
Just remind.
We'll just do a double check here.
Wrong year.
6th, actually. The 6th.
Okay,
So the Cleared for Takeoff 101 class is happening on Saturday the 6th, Saturday the 6th. And if you're in the Phoenix area, definitely register and get to go with Capt Ron through security onto a stationary Southwest airplane. So thank you guys for jumping in here tonight. being with me in our first episode of season 7 of a Fearless Flight live show. Wow.
Absolutely.
Huh.
And I have to throw in that over the Christmas holiday, Dieter's birthday was December 21st. Happy birthday, Dieter. And
Thank
Captain
you.
Eric's was December 28th. Happy birthday, Captain Eric.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
So we're both only actually 14, 15 years old in terms of birthday celebrated. I mean, one of
Yes.
them looks better.
Dog years.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Diane. I really appreciate that. And
Maka iho oli makahiki ho. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year in Hawaiian.
I love it. Okay, Tracy is off. She's watching the SpaceX launch. Way more excited. So we're all gonna hop off.
So we'll all have to go now.
Thank you. Have a great week, and see you next Tuesday, 6:30.